1979, Ridley Scott's Alien. 1982, John Carpenter's The Thing. We both felt the ghost of the original Alien film very present in the thing. Vibes, tones, reminders, themes. We didn't do Alien versus Predator on purpose. And we both are and aren't doing Alien versus The Thing. We aren't imagining what would happen if the two creatures were to meet on screen. We're comparing and contrasting and talking about what happened when these two films met in the culture. So, how does one film set the stage for the other? And does this Alien give birth to this thing?
I think it's a very interesting question. I think it's something that jumped out at us when we were watching it. It jumped out at me definitely, and then I suggested it to you. And here we find ourselves. I don't know if it was immediate. I don't know if I saw it in Alien or if it was somewhere around Prometheus or Covenant where I started to see, I guess when you watch a film and you're specific to a genre, science fiction, and specifically extraterrestrials and the um, the role of aliens in film, it would be hard to ignore the fact that John Carpenter's and Ridley Scott's films dance to a very similar beat. Does Alien give birth to the thing? It's an interesting question, but I think the genre births both of them in that so much of what each film is the establishment of what has come before with our wonder of what is in the sky, what is out there, our attempts to understand our place in the universe and the delicate and in many cases the very vulnerable nature of that existence. But in watching the thing, I cannot help believe that there were certain aspects, particularly the chest bursting scene in each film, that I'm sure John Carpenter saw that and probably said, I can one up that. I'm not sure if he one ups it, but definitely he definitely hits you with his chest burst in a way that you weren't expecting, that you couldn't possibly expect. And when you've seen this movie in a theater with an audience that many know and many don't know, it is a fucking emotional ride. It's going to be interesting to start to go back and look at the beats and how both of these films, because would you say that they're very similar films in their setups, in their vibe, in the tension that is created in both films? I look at both films and I say, there is definitely influence, but I start to wonder how much of that is the influence of not just the influence, but the basic structure and the notes of the genre. What's your take on it at this time?
I agree. I think it's there are elements that are the same that are genre elements. You start to compare, and then you see things that obviously are like similar, and then you see things that are like very different. You look at just from the perspective of the tone and the feel. There's a sense of paranoia and claustrophobia in both
Mm-hmm.
films. Um, we were both reminded. I think just even in the setup that you describe as, I think you described it as 10 little Indians, right?
Yeah,
Um, which
that's the
means basic,
common. Yeah.
that's like the name of the trope, right? It's
Hmm.
just kind of like people are getting, are getting killed off, right?
Yeah.
So it's in that sense. Someone at work, um, there's a guy at work. You know, you get these people like in your sphere
Hmm.
that maybe they're not like in your circle, but they're in your wider sphere. That they're movie people or they're music or whatever it is. But at at work and it's movies and it's just a few people, and then you start to like one. There's one guy like, oh, I recorded this, blah blah, and he's like, oh, what you talking about? I'm like, you have to fucking listen to the episode. I'll talk about it in a general sense, or I'm not giving away the game, my friend. Um, but you know, and then you just talk about peripheral whatever. But
Yeah.
and then there's another guy. He'll pass by and he'll say, "Is Predator a slasher film? You know, what do you think?" And then we'll talk about it. And
Yeah.
he's like, "Because it is people getting killed off. It's not a final girl, but it's a final guy. But it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. But it's 80s. But it's action. But it's this. But it's that. And you know, you go into that. You could do that with this, where it's like, well, in that 10 Little Indians kind of framework, it's a slasher and that people are getting killed off. This is obviously spaceship in the future versus scientific outposts in Antarctica at that, which was contemporary to that time. It was the present then, early 80s. This is the thing is what Alien is, but it's also a who done it, or who's gonna do it, or who's gonna get it, or who's it. Um, Alien is mostly men. The thing is all men. There's a blue collar worker vibe in both films, even though the scientific kind of group in the thing, they're you know, doctors and whatever. There are doctors among them. Still, there's this blue collar like feel to it. In Alien, you have a final girl. In the thing, you have an active hero throughout, um, with aspects of, you know, anti-hero kind of characteristics. The the dog in the thing, as the original manifestation of the thing, is presented in a way that seems, especially in the beginning, it seems evil, and it seems intelligent and evil, um, or menacing, in a way that I think the thing, and tell me if you disagree or you agree, the way that in that's in the thing. In Alien, the xenomorph, as you continue to experience, and this also, this is like trying to not add on from the other films, but that happens also. Um, the xenomorph just is. Um, I don't get a sense from the xenomorph that it's that dog fucking seemed evil as fuck, which was cool. Um, when it's looking.
Yeah.
Obviously, however that creature lives its life is its own thing, but there's a difference there. Um, you see moments that are similar. Like in one film they find a ship on a plane or on a planet, I say. On another they find a ship in the ice, and one they find a space jockey's body, and the other one they find these other bodies. They find eggs in Alien. One has a betrayer, Ian Holmes' character, who's this corporate android. And in that sense, his betrayal is anti-humanity. It could be argued that in the beginning stages, Blair, when he starts to destroy everything, when he's going crazy, he's actually pro-humanity because he realizes that this shit cannot get out.
Yeah. It's a very important
Um,
distinction. Blair is a, for that moment, Blair is a hero. Whether he has been taken over at that point, because you, and this is the brilliance of Carpenter's film, is that you never really understand what, you never really, not understand, you never really know the full nature of the thing's power. Um, the way you watch it, it seems to me at least, if you make an analogous to the AIDS epidemic or to any other disease, you're healthy, you absorb a parasite, and that parasite slowly starts to overwhelm your body and changes you. So I don't know if Blair is becoming the thing at that point, or he has yet to become. I watching the movie the dozens of times that I've watched it, I never know when Blair is being taken over. I never know if he's still Blair in the ice shack. He seems like he's okay, or maybe it's to say that some people are a little bit more resilient and it takes longer because Bennings is taken over almost immediately. I mean, you see that scene of him in the storeroom. Windows has left, Bennings is left alone, and when Windows comes back, he sees the thing wrapping itself around Bennings and absorbing him, and the next thing you do is you see Bennings in the snow, half thing,
yeah,
half Bennings, and
yeah, with that claw.
with that claw, really creepy shit. It was supposed to. It's a testament to the inventiveness of John Carpenter and to know because it was supposed to be a much bigger. It was supposed to be a much bigger death scene involving an ice flow and him being sucked into the ice, and then different parts of him being shot out at different. But the creepiness of having him trying to escape or to find some kind of safety to continue with transformation, and then they see him like that with those hands. It's incredibly creepy. The thing works. The thing works on a number of different levels, but I think its spareness in certain aspects because it's really over the top in some of its special effects, but over the top in a way that really works within the it works today in a way that in 1982 it was dismissed by a number of critics who considered it gross out, vomit inducing, gratuitous in a lot of ways, and making up for a lack of character development. I got to tell you, between you and I, and maybe it's because it's 2024, but reading some of the reviews from 82, I don't know what fucking movie these people were watching because they were so dismissive. They were so overwhelmed by the gore. But you also have to take into account that in 2024, we've seen so much more of this, and we've seen the advancement of both animatronics, special effects, makeup, CGI, and all of that, where anything is possible. Whereas the thing, none of that was possible. They made it up there. It was being created there, and I think I think the excess of the film is one of its. It's definitely its calling card, but it's really one of the strongest elements of the film. So, in watching it, it's interesting. It's this conversation is going to be all over the place because there's so many different aspects to each film that there's so many different paths you can take, and when you realize that if you talk about the thing or if you talk about Alien long enough, you go into a direction where you kind of get lost in the woods, and you're not sure how to come back, or at least I'm not sure how to come back to relating it to the thing. The thing and Alien both have this sense of, like you say, paranoia. The There's this sense of fear for the survival of humanity because in each film they know if this thing gets to land, if this thing gets to a populated area, it will kill everybody. It's insinuated in Alien. It's expanded on in Aliens and Alien 3 and Resurrection. But watching the films back to back, and I watched Alien last night and The Thing 2 nights ago. I was just really taken. I was really taken aback by how I don't. This is going to sound dismissive, but they're paint by numbers. These are the beats that you do in a film like this. What ends up elevating the actual film is the talent of both Ridley Scott and John Carpenter. With less creative directors, you could simply shoot some shoot footage without any kind of sense of the tension that needs to be built. When you're watching Alien, and tell me what your opinion is. When you're watching Alien, even for the fifth or sixth or seventh, eighth, well, how many number of times, the
Yeah,
darkness of that spacecraft, the darkness of the Nostromo, I forget where the fucking alien is.
yeah,
I know it's coming. I know it's there. I know it's in the dark. I just don't know when it's going to hit. Even though I've seen the film half a dozen times, a dozen times. I've seen it in theaters. I've seen it at home. I've seen it with family. I've seen it by myself. The thing the thing is a little bit different because I'm trying to figure out the puzzle. When are people,
yeah,
you know what I mean? When is Blair
yeah.
over? When is Palmer
One
taken?
is kind of where and when.
Yeah,
The alien is where and when, and the thing is whom.
yeah. Who goes there? Whom, how, when, and when did this happen? When I think I think one of the big questions that people who listen to this and are listening to it right now are going to ask, okay, to pair these two films in the way that we're pairing, the question becomes, which is the better film? I don't think you can answer
Is
that.
it?
I don't think. Well,
I mean,
I think a lot
I
of
don't
people
even know
would.
if that's.
I
Well,
think a
that's the
lot of
thing
people
is that
ask.
they're okay. I just don't think they're. I mean, if we go from, let's take a step away from story and then
Hmm.
go into like just the look. To me, Alien looks better. It's more of an overall, it has more of an overarching aesthetic. It has better production design, which is also probably budgetary. It looks more artistic. It has
Hmm.
H.R. Giger's influence,
Yeah.
the skeletal, organic, mechanical, sexual. Um, it has the sleekness of the xenomorph,
Hmm.
um, but there's all, it has a grittiness to it, but also a cleanness to it in a strange way. And it sets up contrasts with that. The thing is more of a, it's more gritty in general, but it's an uglier film, and I mean
Absolutely.
that.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
the
it's a
highest compliment in this case. It being an ugly film is not. It's not the adjective. As ugly is not the adjective that it is normally ascribed. Ugly is the world is ugly. It's a more
yeah,
accurate depiction. I think the you're right in artistically you can take frames of Alien and you can put them on the wall. It's great art. It's beautiful. It's and that's exactly what you would expect from somebody of Ridley Scott's background: commercial art director, um, artist, painter, not painter. Well, you know, he was artistic in the sense that he storyboarded everything out.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. He had a visual, he had an eye,
hmm.
an aesthetic eye for visual,
Yeah,
spatial um, work to
yeah,
create that.
yeah. This
In
is
that
some.
sense, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, I was just in that sense. I was saying that that's not what John Carpenter was. John Carpenter wasn't an artist of that caliber, of that, not even that caliber, that type. Um, Carpenter paints purely with the camera. So the images that you see, he's it's the difference between an A quality picture and a B movie. Carpenter's film is B movie because he would Carpenter would live in the slums of popular cinema, and
Yeah.
the fact is that he never had the prestige of a Ridley Scott, and I don't think he deserves it to a degree. I mean, Ridley Scott has created some incredible masterpieces. John Carpenter has created masterpieces that are of a different style and are of a different.
Yeah.
I can't. When I brought this topic up, what I was trying to get across is I believe that a lot of people want to reduce movie watching to something as trite as which is the better film or which is higher quality. I don't think you can do that with these two films. For me, at least, I think both films exist as different masterpieces. They handle similar material in vastly different ways.
Yeah.
His Carpenter Carpenter is dealing with something that is ostensibly just a scary film. It's who goes there, what's in the dark. It's the paranoia, but the when you throw paranoia of this type into a film, it makes it different than just a regular horror film or a slasher film. It goes into the psychology, and you know, there's nothing scary about Jason Voorhees except for the dreams and the nightmares that you're going to have afterwards. It's the psychology of it. It's that sense of helplessness that we have, that helplessness that exists in our psyche that controls our sense of safety, of security. And that's in abundance in The Thing. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is where The Thing does Alien better. Because the scares are not just where is the thing? The scare is who is the thing? And the scare
Right.
becomes, could I possibly be it as well? It's especially in 1982 at the beginning of the AIDS epidemic, which when this film was made, or when this film was being made, it was such a new thing that I don't know if they incorporated it into the performance and the writing of the film, or if it affected simply the viewing of it. But it's the
Yeah. I
cultural
mean,
baggage that this
comes
film
with it.
carries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did an episode 304
Hmm.
in 2020, um, which, we were dealing with a pandemic,
Yeah.
and we talk about, that the specter of AIDS. I don't remember to what degree we talk about it, but it is mentioned because it's obvious that there's the blood test and who has it, and
Hmm.
um, uh, it's this group of men, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the stigma around, especially in the early days, it's like it was considered, a gay man's disease.
Hmm.
Um, and coming from last week talking about ET and this kind of moment when watching it, I blurred out, ET has AIDS.
Yeah, I remember that.
Um, and then seeing this kind of homosexual subtext to ET. If you haven't listened to that episode, listen to it, and it will perhaps make more sense. and how E.T. killed the thing. A cuddly fucking creature kills this other one. But Alien is a massacre in a lounge, where people are drinking scotch. You know what I mean? Where
Yeah, it's
people are
classier.
drinking brandy and snifters.
Hmm.
The thing is a massacre in a dive bar where fucking Bukowski's head is on a spike. You know what I mean? Um, uh, it's just the effects wise, the thing's effects are more fucked up, and it goes right for what we've talked about in terms of if you see an animal, if you see a dog in a film,
Yeah.
and that's always Leslie's like biggest thing.
Did you watch this with Leslie?
No,
Has she seen it?
no.
Okay.
I was like, you can't watch this.
She can't watch the dog scenes.
She can't watch. Yeah. Um, and because that's always her concern.
Hmm.
Does with the alien, it was like, does anything happen to the cat? And I was like, no, Jones. Like most of the time, I'm like, I don't remember. And
That
then when
little
shit
shit
does
lives.
happen, she's like, what the? Yeah. And but I was like, no, I'm gonna recommend that you don't fucking watch this. Um, because it's like, if you're gonna watch it. Don't like avoid these scenes because this is an integral part of the film. So if you watch it, that's it's on you. If you don't, then you don't. Um, so this does what gets everybody is it has horrific scenes with dogs. We talked about this with Alien
Hmm.
3, um,
Yeah.
where the Rottweiler, there's the chest burster comes out of, depending on the version, whether it's an ox or it's the Rottweiler, but that is one of the versions with the Rottweiler and how fucked up that is and how fucked up it looks. That, there's Alien, the original, it's okay, the egg opening, the face hugger, the chest burster, and then the actual full grown adult alien. This, the thing has the dog transformation scene in that kennel, um, and how the tentacles lash out and spray at the other dogs. That's a fucked up
Yeah. It's ugly.
scene.
It's real ugly.
The fucking the 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 sounds, everything is fucked up. And the one character that has grown so attached to the dog, the new dog, he's attached to all the dogs, but this, especially this new one. And that fucking, I mean, Carpenter makes you from the get go. There's a helicopter chasing this dog through the snow. The dog's running through the snow, and the helicopter's chasing, and someone's shooting at it. So right away, you're like, what the fuck? If you haven't seen it, you're you want the dog to escape.
Well, see, that's really interesting because that's a little bit in contrast to what you were saying before, and I think you were jumping ahead or maybe projecting, or we were like,
I was
because
jumping ahead. Yeah,
because you were saying he's evil as fuck. He is evil as fuck. Later on,
yeah,
because I don't know if he's evil as
but it's
fuck.
not
He's
that much later.
creepy as fuck. There's a
I think.
scene.
I mean, even the tone,
Hmm.
that Morricone music.
Oh yeah.
So okay, so the dog's running from this helicopter, and the
Hmm.
guy's trying to snipe at the dog, and he misses.
Yeah.
Ultimately, these Norwegians are unsuccessful in killing the dog, and it's like, well, why would they want to fucking kill this dog? What the
Hmm.
fuck? Then the Carpenter, to me, presents the dog as fucking evil, and the dog is like watching and looking outside and fucking like
Hmm.
it's always like in the background, fucking like it's not looking at the camera, but it almost is. It's like, yeah, very very creepy. But to me, that form of creepiness is just this side of fucking evil. Um, so at that point, it's like, oh, that's why they were trying to kill that dog. I get it. Fuck. Okay. So you're already now what? What?
Well, no. I like what you're talking about here, but it's like, um, what Carpenter does is incredibly intelligent because who doesn't love dogs? I mean, if you don't
Mm-hmm.
love dogs,
Mm-hmm.
you're really a
Exactly.
questionable human being. So when you see this dog being chased through the snow by a helicopter, all of your instincts should tell you they're chasing that dog for a fucking reason. But you want that dog to be good. You want that. You look at how beautiful that animal is, and you convince yourself that there is something wrong with the situation. And
Yeah.
but if you were to be realistic about it, you were like, they need to kill that fucking dog. They're doing that for a
Of
reason. They're
course.
flying low. They're coming. You know, the guy is half crazed. He's screaming in Norwegian. And somebody translated it. Get away from that dog. That's not a dog. It's a thing. And he shoots Billings in the leg. And I mean, it's so crazy. And Carpenter knows your average person's affection for not only animals but a dog specifically, and already
Yeah.
it's a fucking cheat on his part, and it's the best kind of cheat because he's manipulating the audience. He knows what the audience is. He has to put it in something. If he had put it in a fucking polar bear, there'd be no doubt they'd be trying to
Of
kill it.
course.
If it put it in maybe a fox, you could have got away with the cute thing, but it wouldn't have been the dog. It could have been a snow rabbit. And you would have been like, why is this guy so focused on killing a rabbit? You would not have had you would not have had the emotional investment, especially at this point in the movie, that you're saying, I want that dog to get away. And
Right.
but then slowly, and Carpenter and Russell in the commentary on this disc, and if you've never listened to it, I always recommend John Carpenter's commentaries because he gives great commentary. He talks about how lucky he was to get that dog. That dog's name was Jed or Jeb, I can't remember. And he said this dog was a great actor. He could walk. He could hit a mark. He could walk around, look. He looked like he was actually invested. There are moments when I don't think it's too much to say that you justifyingly anthropomorphize that dog because that dog had human qualities, and not in a cute way the way they do most dogs. This seemed natural. And I think that was the
Because I'm
scariest
telling
part
you,
of it. Yeah.
it seems, dogs are smart
Very smart.
and
Yeah.
they know what they're fucking doing, and when they steal that slice of pizza, they know.
Yeah.
Not only do they know this, they know that like, no, this is they're not stealing like the thin one. If you get several and you're a pig and you decide that you want to watch fucking ET eating 5 different fucking pizzas because you want to waste your money. No, they're getting the fucking Chicago deep dish style one
Hmm.
because that's your favorite.
Yeah.
I digress. Um, so so it got too personal.
Yeah, a
Anyway,
little
so
bit.
yeah, dogs don't listen to this
The
podcast.
attacks.
What am I wasting my time for? So then, it has these human qualities, but it's also giving off qualities that are not human, but they're not dog. It's beyond that because you're getting a sense of, or at least I was, like I'm saying, is I was getting a sense of evil, and you don't necessarily think of dogs as evil. You just think of dogs as dogs.
Hmm.
Either they're angry or they're territorial or they're rabid or they're angry or attacking or whatever. This thing, this thing is beyond that, um, even beyond human evil. And so with Alien, it's like when you see an egg, these eggs in Alien, it's just kind of like I don't think that very many people saw those eggs, and we know that they're eggs, you can tell, and that you get this sense of like, oh my God, like when you, what is that, the March of the Penguins? Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm.
When the penguins are doing all that stuff with the eggs, and just is like, Jesus fuck, like that's what it takes to fucking like for a penguin to fucking make it, like just from that, all of that whole fucking thing with the egg, with on the feet and all that. No one fucking was watching the Alien going like, oh my God, we must protect these eggs because what's inside, like, we want to protect the hatchling, whatever it is. When that fucking thing opens up like a flower, but also vaginal, also,
Oh yeah.
you're like, this is not good. This is not good. When you see the dog running, you're like, well, that's not good. What the fuck? But you're not, that's not good that he's being shot at. Then later, when the dog is roaming around that base, the facility, the camp, the site, the outpost, fucking snooping around, sneaking around, fucking like watching people, and you're just like, that's not good. That fucker's no. So then by the time that dog goes into the fucking kennel with the other dogs, you're like, oh fuck, because now you're feeling for the other dogs because you still love dogs, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're a cat person, you're still like, well, okay. And then it starts to fucking like growl or bay or whatever it does. And you're like, oh fuck. And the other dogs react as you know that they would. Dogs fucking know. They smell it, they feel it. And then the transformation, and you're going, what the fuck?
Yeah. You
He's
are
going
literally
for it.
saying, what the fuck?
Yeah, because there's like, it's like the alien egg opening, but it's emerging from the body of a dog. It's a flower. It's like flowering out of this flesh and fur. Um, and it's like, okay, burn that motherfucker. Then by the time you get to the chest activity of the films, of both films, okay, you've seen the fucking face hugger attack John Hurt's character, and it's wrapped around the neck, and it's around the face, and it looks like some deep sea fucking creature that we would eat, like some like the crab like fingers or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he's okay. Then there's another scene, another like lunch scene or whatever, and everything. But then he's not okay. Then that little fucking nasty little ugly thing comes out of his chest and zips off. That's fucked up. That's very fucked up.
I can't disagree. Yeah.
But it's not. This dude looks like he has a heart attack. He's not breathing. He's full fucking cardiac arrest shit. Fucking, okay, defibrillator. All of a sudden, this fucking his chest opens up like a maw and clamps down on the doctor's arms, cutting them off, like severing them.
Biting them off.
That was, yeah.
Yeah.
That was super, like, what the fuck? And the fact that you're watching these, we're watching this 2024.
Mm-hmm.
As you described, with all this shit with the CGI and all this and that. And on the one hand, it's like, well, did these people who watched it when it came out, did they, would they have become desensitized as we've become with the proliferation of like all of these different forms of gore, the way you describe and the methods of achieving that gore, whether it's CGI or advancements in fucking whatever, right? Um, while it is safe to say or to argue to some degree that we're more desensitized, um, to watch these practical effects today, in the days of CGI, when like when you're watching, for the most part,
Yeah.
when you're watching CGI. But you also know when you're watching a thing, like an actual thing. And we've talked about this. We talked about this with Blade Runner. We've talked about this a lot. Like to see, especially like scenes of spaceships, when it's an actual model that's moving, it looks different and it looks like it has an actual shape and it looks separate from its environment. It doesn't look flat the way that things look when they're generated on a computer. Everything just looks like it's on a flat surface that's just, there's no depth. Not that there's no depth, but it's not the same amount of depth because it's actually, there's not a thing there that can actually cast a shadow, that actually has a shape, that has edges, that's distinct from everything around it. So we're watching these effects, and this isn't even fucking like the last one. It's one of the main ones, it's one of the central ones. But you see that chest open up, and it's a real fucking thing of
Hmm.
mechanical devices, makeup, gel, whatever else, rubber. You're actually watching that because it's actually happening, or it's depicting what's happening. That affects you on a deeper level. I mean, even now, after having seen and all the gore that we've seen, we know that that's different,
Yeah,
and it
absolutely.
still affects us, desensitized or not. And so it outdoes it outdoes the alien film when it comes to that, because as I said earlier, the head spider, I didn't talk about this, but the head spider effect, all this stuff is so fucked up, and it's just weird enough to seem real.
It never crosses a line. It's very strange. It's like it could have become, and when it does, it comments on itself. When Palmer looks at it and says, "You got to be fucking kidding me," he's saying,
Hmm.
and he's saying the exact thing that everybody in the audience is
Right.
saying, and that's why that line kills, because it
Yeah.
grounds it in a very real. It's like, you got to be fucking kidding me. I thought that's exactly what you would be sitting there in if you were there. I remember seeing it in the theater, and I've
We've
seen
seen
this.
it in the
We've
theater.
seen it in the theater. I've seen this in the theater maybe 3 or 4 times, and it's always. This is one of those movies where it's always worth seeing in a theater. It's always worth making the time, and if you can take somebody who's never seen it, even better. And I'm not talking
Oh
about
yeah.
never seen it in a theater. I'm talking about never seen it because
Yes.
it's it's an experience, and the people the people who go in to see it for the most part are respectful. I think in the times that I've seen both Alien and The Thing in a theater years after their initial releases, everybody in there has been respectful to the excitement and to the surprise that is coming. Yeah, we know it is, but we know that there are kids in here. I mean, it sounds fucked up to say that there are kids in here, but yeah, you take a kid, and he's gonna be blown away by the shit that he's seeing on screen because number one, it is real. It's there. It's happening. It's got weight to it. It's got the shadows, like you say. Um, it's a lot more. It's a lot more frightening than anything that you can see out there. It's when you compare it to a slasher film, and I know what you were saying with that. Slasher films are not frightening. This is frightening because there's an inventiveness to there's a really great there's an incredible inventiveness to the violence on the screen, but it's also very much it's it's overwhelming in in a lot of senses. Um, what this
Yeah,
thing does and how it becomes, it's not just what, in a weird way, Ridley Scott is limited to one xenomorph. Basically, once it
right.
grows and you see its actual, when you see that it's grown from what has burst out of Kane's chest, and you see it after it pulls Harry Dean Stanton up into the to the coolers. That's basically what you're going to be dealing with for the rest of the film. This film is completely different. It's you don't know what the thing is going to be. You don't know if it's going to be that
No,
dog. You don't know. By the time you get to the Blair monster, it's like, what the fuck is that?
yeah,
And it's really overwhelming. It's kind of um, it's the thing of nightmares because it's not simply a creature from outer space. It's not just something that it's going to be difficult to kill. It's something that you don't know what it is. You don't know. There's a moment where Gary is talking about Bennings, I think, and he tells McCready, "I know Bennings. He's my friend. I've known him for 10
yeah.
years." And it's like, motherfucker, you don't know anything. That's the scariest shit. That's the scariest shit in the world. I was like, I don't know this motherfucker. I don't. I thought I knew him, but this isn't him.
Yeah, your friend's dead.
Yeah, your
That's
friend's
not your
dead.
friend.
That's not your friend. That's the shell that your friend came in. That's terrifying to me, and I think the reason that the thing sticks with me, and I was 7 or 8 years old when I first saw this movie. This movie this is one of a handful of movies that keeps coming back into my life over and over and over again. I watch the thing at least once every 2 years. Either it's playing in a theater and I go see it, or my nephew is of age and I'm like, "Have you ever seen the thing?" "No." "We're gonna watch the thing tonight." And it's it's just a fucking powerful thing. It's just incredible in that respect. Wow.
And also, like, you talk about, well, it's a paint by numbers, and it's like,
Hmm.
well, yeah, this is like story structure. This is like plot
Sure.
structure. You
Hmm.
you fucking start with there's an inciting incident.
Yeah.
Something happens, and now the main character and the rest of the characters are in a situation. They have a problem, and they need to figure out a way to get out of it. Um, and they have a main problem, and then they have these little problems along the way. And they're like, okay, this is what we're gonna do at a certain point, and then that goes wrong, and then ultimately it seems like there's no fucking way out of it. But at that point, there is one final fucking way that they have to go in order to fucking solve their problem or get what they want or whatever. They come up against this big fucking the head to head with that issue and climax, and then the story resolves somehow, and then we go home. That's the structure in a basic fucking in
Hmm.
a basic plot. If you have that, I mean, art films don't have that because they don't have that. That they're not doing that. Um, the interesting thing about Alien is that it's seemingly resolved. All with the sequels, it's kind of, well, that's
Hmm.
it's like, no, no, no. It was on the ship. No,
Yeah.
it's still on the ship. No, it's still on the ship.
And there's
Um,
always the debate of whether or not a sequel diminishes the power of the original film. I don't think so,
right.
but I
It
understand why
depends.
people
I think
argue
it
it.
depends. Um,
Yeah, sometimes, but
this one, this one. The Thing. I keep saying this one for The Thing. It's the ending
It
is
did get confusing
ambiguous.
for a minute there.
Well, because I say yeah, because
Yeah.
I guess because we've been talking about Alien for like 5 years, and then now
Mhm.
we're talking about The Thing and the Alien. But
Yeah.
th- The Thing, famous, classic, ambiguous ending. Um, there is no resolution. You know that the the assumption is that the humans are gonna die.
Hmm.
If they've killed the thing, they're still gonna die because they're gonna freeze to death.
Yeah.
If they haven't killed the thing, it's gonna kill them, and then it's gonna freeze until it's found again. Um, hopeless ending, completely darker than Alien. Both characters go to
Hmm.
sleep at the end of these films. One goes to sleep believing that she's won. She goes to sleep with the cat. All is well, finally. The other one's just like, I'm gonna just close my eyes and we're just gonna wait and see what happens because no one here gets out alive,
Yeah.
as Jim Morrison said. That's those are two different ways to end a story, but slasher. Okay, they have a specific structure. This is a situation. This is an antagonist. This is the problem. Well, the problem is someone got killed. The continued problem is more people are getting killed. How do I not fucking, survive? How do I survive and kill this thing?
Yeah.
This Jason or whatever, um, or Freddy or what, Michael Myers. Um, kill or not? How do I avoid falling backwards, falling in the woods and crawling backwards, fucking while being chased and screaming and not moving and doing stupid shit? At which point do I expose my breasts? And that means that I'm going to get killed. Or at which point do I not expose my breasts so that we know that I'm not going to get killed? At which point do I not be a black person? That way I don't get killed number right off the top. Um, going back to the horror noir documentaries and the kind of explanation of that fucking trope that we have in horror. And in both of these films, as I think we talked about in horror noir because they talk about it.
Hmm.
Yeah, the Yaphet Kotto character doesn't ultimately survive, but does survive beyond being the first killed. And in The Thing, there are two black characters. One dies off screen. The other, it's kind of like, well, I mean, they both die off screen because in the end, Keith David, uh, we don't know. Um, we don't know. But what I'm getting at is that the difference between just kind of a truly paint by numbers like
Hmm.
slasher and these is that there are also um, deeper thematic
Yes.
um,
And that's the difference.
elements,
Yes.
yeah, that that reveal themselves not only in the story but also in the look at Alien,
Hmm.
the themes of birth, sex, and death because of Giger's design. They're not only in the story, they're in the set. Sex, birth, death are built in literally to the set. You see all these tubes, all this piping, all this shit. Like it's we talked about the alien design himself, this big black thing with a big head that fucking stabs you. It fucking penetrates you. Um, that's the theme. That's one of the themes in action. So it's not just a movie about people getting killed. I mean, it is that, but it's a movie about other shit too. You know what I mean? Like you've got the class war stuff, and you have that is built. There's the lower, the below, and then there's the upper deck. So you have visually, literally, on the set, an upper class and a lower class. The truckers in space, workers versus corporate interests. The computer, the operating system for the ship is called Mother, and that the brain of the mother is in a completely different area that looks completely different. It looks like it's warm in there. That's stuff that slasher films don't do that typically. They keep it to like, okay, if they're gonna do themes, it's gonna be, yeah, it's gonna be like, well, some kind of retrograde punishment of sexuality. Um, or, if it's a Freddy Krueger thing, it's like, well, we're dealing with dreams, so now, okay, the dream world, and that's what we're gonna have to, like, where we can use thematics and can do stuff, and um, maybe that one goes a little bit deeper with some stuff, but even then, it's not as all encompassing as the Alien. Um, the thing, this virus metaphor, the blood, the AIDS, but it also has the individual versus the group, and you have like rooms and who's in the room and who's on screen, who's off screen.
Yeah.
Those are choices that are also revealing theme, because if you have this setup of like this, and this is, I was thinking about this in relationship to kind of escape from LA, particularly because when we did that episode, I felt that Kurt Russell's libertarianism kind of came on too strong at the end of the film, where he's like, "Welcome to the race, the human race," or whatever. And it's kind of like this kind of every man for himself.
Yeah.
It's all, whatever. Um, that was a little bit on the nose. But this kind of, some of that in this with the individual versus the group, and is your responsibility to yourself, or is your responsibility to the greater, the tribe, where you get, we talked about that in terms of, I mean, that's also like COVID, or in a zombie film, or you're trying to not get, you're trying to not become the thing. When you're playing tag, like you don't, but you also don't want to throw necessarily people next to you in front of it. When the bear's chasing you, they say you don't have to be the fastest person, you just have to be faster than the slowest person. Um, but it's like, should we all try to escape, or should we just feed this fucking one person to them to give us more time? It's the gray. The gray is the same kind of situation, and it's like we're all trying to escape, but we're trying to escape together, maybe.
But there's also an understanding that there's greater chances in numbers, where
Of course.
if you guys can maintain rationality, as long as you can continue to keep your fear at bay. And in both films, Veronica Cartwright's character is breaking down. Lambert is a mess. Windows in the Thing is a mess. Um, Fear is a very real thing. It's a very palpable um, problem that we face, and it's a matter. It's not just who's weak. This type of situation shows us who's weak and who's strong. It's more than that. It's a matter of survival, and it's a matter of understanding. It's a matter of understanding what you're up against. I don't feel like, throughout the Alien series, Sigourney Weaver is afraid, except for Resurrection, which is its own kind of, maybe that's part of the problem with that film, is that there is no fear left in the character at that point. Um, but for the first three films, at least, there is a concern, there is a desire to continue to live, there is a desire to beat this thing, there is a fear of what it would mean if it got to a populated area. Um, these men, and let's face it, men who are at an Antarctic substation,
Yeah,
they're out there because they don't, yeah, they want to make the fast buck that would entail, but these are also men that don't fit into normal society. So they're
yeah. There's a
outcasts
reason
as
why
it
you go to
is.
that fucking
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they're and McCready, I mean, look at him. The first thing that we see is him playing chess and drinking and then getting pissed off about it. He's flying
And pouring
and
the fucking
pouring
yeah,
the dude, cheating bitch.
yeah. And he has a fucking a
Yeah,
sombrero.
yeah. This giant ridiculous sombrero. And he's a helicopter pilot. Here we go. Where did he learn to fly? It's
Right.
1982. I don't. It's. I don't have to guess too heavily on what his experience, what his wartime experience was, and what broke him and sent him out into the middle of fucking nowhere. It's pretty much there. Childs, tough bastard. Palmer, fucking pothead. Blair, Copper, all of these guys. Gary, these are all guys that just can't be in the real world. Clark, even even as difficult as it is to be around normal people, he can't even be around those people. Clark has to drift towards the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So, these are, there's a reason for this kind of shit. It's yes, it's these are both very blue collar films, but they're also films that look at people who are, I don't know if you would call it necessarily antisocial, but definitely people with difficulty existing in the real world, in the regular world. That's why they find themselves so isolated. It's not a matter of, this is not Robinson Crusoe where they land out there. They're stuck out there. They've chosen
Yeah, no.
to go out
They've
there.
signed up.
Yeah, they've
These are like
signed up for this.
frontiersmen.
Yeah. And that after this assignment, that Ripley, Dallas, Lambert, Palmer, Kane, that McCready, Childs, all of them will sign on to a different assignment because it's all they know. I love that about both films. Both films are about isolation. Both films are about you have nowhere else to go. This is what happens when you find yourself running away from everything, and now there's nowhere else to run to. And the thing and the xenomorph. Neither do they. They don't have anywhere to run towards or away to. They just need to keep moving forward and killing whatever's in front of them. Somebody wrote a novella based on the thing, but they told it from the perspective of the thing. And I'd be really interested in reading that. And one of the things was that it's desire to survive, but it's also confusion in encountering a species that couldn't shapeshift. I thought that was really interesting. Imagine something that there are two things about Scott and Carpenter's films. You never get the feeling that the xenomorph or the thing are dumb. You
Right.
just don't know the level of their intelligence. And for any kind of exploration of these stories, that would be my logical next step. And it's never really been explored. And I mean, they touched on it in Resurrection, and there were elements of it in Covenant and Prometheus, but not like you would expect. I mean, I'm glad there was never a sequel to The Thing. And in a weird way, as much as I like Cameron's film and I love Fincher's film, Alien would have been fine if it had just been a single thing.
Yeah.
It probably would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Prometheus and I
Yeah.
like Covenant, but they don't add a whole lot to this. These are these are singular films, I think.
They are.
And
Yeah.
I love both of them for what they're able to do. These are some scare. These are. It's a cliche to say edge of your seat, but you are on the edge of your seat when you watch these films. You're freaked out. You're wondering. And if you're any kind of a paranoia bastard like I am, this kind of seeps into life because I start wondering, not to the degree that I look around me and I wonder who of my friends are the thing, but you do ask the fundamental question, who of my friends are what they say they are?
Right. Yeah.
You know? And I think
And
that's the
and
brilliance of this film.
and it's also like, and am I perceived
Oh, yeah, there's that
the way
aspect
that
too. Yeah. Yeah.
I perceive myself, or am I this fucking like, it's it it always it not always, but with the thing, it does come back to, it is this tension between the individual and the group,
Yeah.
um, and that political divide and that like interpersonal divide on the
Yeah.
political level, like it's the one side of the aisle at in its most simple way believes that if you strengthen the rights of the individual, the group will benefit ultimately. The other is like, well, if you take care of the group, then the individuals will benefit. Um, and they clash.
Yeah.
Um, and in this society, like in our American society, we are a very individualistic society. We're an individualistic culture. And so if you get a situation like, um, the gun rights thing is like,
Mm-hmm.
well, we need to, one side is saying, no, we need to protect people's rights to bear arms. And the other side is saying, yeah, but this is what fucking happens when you don't fucking like have controls or more controls. And it's like, it doesn't matter. You need people with guns to defend against people with guns. Um, Pandemic. Well, we need to do this and this and this so that we don't get ourselves and other people sick. Yeah, but you don't have a right to fucking like prevent me from doing whatever the fuck I want, basically. Um, you know what I mean?
Oh,
It's
yeah, definitely.
those are those big issues that that a horror movie will encapsulate within the particular issues of that horror movie, whether it's contagion or fucking survival because of whatever or however it is. Um, but then once you get down to the just the personal level, it's the relationship level. It's like, well, the survival of the relationship or or the metaphorical survival of one's own identity. Am I going to lose myself if I am absorbed in this other person? These fucking like toxic relationships where eventually they're both the thing.
Yeah.
One person is like they lose whatever they were before and they just become this fucking facsimile of what they were. The shell. That claw comes out. Uh, or is it something where they can both flourish and then you have your common a story that we tell a lot is on a trip you meet people and we met someone on a trip who had been married for a long time and it's like, what's the secret? And the secret is have a common enemy.
Yeah.
In his case with his wife, the common enemy it was the kids.
Yeah.
um, have a common enemy. And in the thing, it's like, well, but like, who's the enemy and who's the friend? Am I the enemy?
Yeah.
Am I the thing? with COVID, it's like, do I have with AIDS, it's do I have AIDS? With COVID, it's like, if you took it seriously, if you actually believe that it was not uh, a hoax or whatever, do do I have it? Do I have it with no symptoms? Do I have a cold or do I have this? Or you know what I mean? And
Oh
and
yeah.
um and so, I know one person who my mother begged this person to not to get vaccinated because my mother is a leftist.
Hmm.
Um and 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 her friend, this woman, basically was absorbed into the fucking tribe of MAGA, but yet they were able to remain friends because they avoided all that. And um, this woman passed away because she got sick,
Yeah.
and um, she made that choice because of the information that she had available, or she chose to accept, or she chose to ignore, or whatever. Who knows what would have happened had she followed a different route? It could have been the same. We don't know. The point of the matter is that it's like, in whether it's life or death like that, or like this in the thing, or it's just fucking what we're talking about with the friends. It's like these are the themes that are taking place that we can talk about in relation to this film that aren't going to be as far reaching, as widespread as fucking Camp Crystal Lake. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
um,
definitely.
we can
Yeah.
say Camp Crystal Lake is, we could say it's a fucking microcosm of the world and blah blah blah, and ultimately death will find us all, blah blah. But these things are more. Uh, these films are more rife with theme. They're more rife with metaphor. They have more
Hmm.
meat that
Yeah.
you can really get into, um, rather than just, as you say, you know, this is the Lego set. We're gonna build this thing, and that's it. Um, those, it becomes more pornographic in the sense that it's like, well, um,
No.
and I don't mean that from a moralistic
No. Part of
perspective. I just mean it's,
simplistic. I'm. You
well, not
know.
only simplistic. It's for the purpose of like there's a release that you're getting from watching
Hmm.
like these moments of people getting killed,
Yeah, but
because
for
it's a
me, that's
thrill.
simplistic. There's no depth. There's
It
no
is simplistic.
character.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
no. With this film, it's like you really get to understand these people. I don't understand the reviewers who said that these were just men yelling at each other. I think there was a lot more. There is. It's very interesting that there is a lot of macho posturing in this film, and there's a lot of there's a lot of big dick syndrome in this film of these guys going against each other. But if you've ever worked with men, you would know that this is pretty much an accurate depiction of how men relate to each other, especially with no women in. I mean, today this film might be considered prehistoric because of its lack of women, but women in this film would have changed the dynamic of it
Yeah,
because it would have been,
right. I mean,
there would have been
it's true,
a
and I
sexual
mean,
element added into it.
and well, I mean, I think you could probably, just as I did with ET. I think that one's a little bit, with the rainbow and everything. It's a little
Hmm.
bit easier to do, but like someone could do a fucking some kind of reading of this as that,
Oh yeah.
with, especially with the AIDS element, or
Hmm.
as you can do with Fight Club or
Yeah.
whatever, which is very much about like a male space, and how a woman basically gets in between the relationship between two men who are ultimately, spoiler fucking alert, the same person. Um,
Yeah, ruin that one for
or
people.
you could say, or yeah, or you could say how basically a mother is getting in the way between like the child and the man. Um, and at a certain point, you have to put your mother at a distance, um, so that you can get out of her arms, so that you can grow up, so that ultimately you can take care of her. Also, with that distance comes that. Um, I mean, is that all in Fight Club? No, but can you extrapolate? Was I able to make that shit up off of Fight Club? Yes. Yeah, with all male, and the thing about nowadays too is that although I am very interested in personally in these different ways of using language and different ways of describing people and how people want to be described, I think that's interesting and I'm cool with it and everything. But at the same time, it can go to the place where it's like, well, what are the things pronouns too? You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
and so it becomes. I was listening to Al Jorgensen, the mind behind the industrial band Ministry, and he talks about how like even Me Too, like although it's well needed, can get caught in this, as he describes it, this TMZ trivialization of just like gossip and like who fucked this groupie and who did
Absolutely,
that
sure.
versus like the real, not real, but these other issues that deal with like why are there no real like women of in power positions in the music industry or financial and deeper issues that are more widespread along the lines of Weinstein's and stuff like that, stuff that is real pervasive and real fucking deep and um rather than just, oh, this person made a comment that made this other person feel uncomfortable. um Microaggressions versus fucking like and all that shit is debatable, and we're now getting into other shit. But yes, if they were to remake this remake, which the thing is a remake, um, one
Yes.
of the greatest remakes of all time,
Yeah.
um, if they were to remake it now, it's like, yeah, I mean,
Well,
what
the prequel, from
segment
what
of
I understand,
society are you trying to?
yeah.
Oh, is
So,
that what they're trying to do?
well, the
Um,
prequel, they did a prequel to this. They did it at the Norwegian
oh, it
site.
wasn't a remake.
No,
Okay,
not the remake of this. Well, okay, so there was the Howard Hawks version in the '40s, Howard Nisby and
yeah,
Hawks, and that had women in it. That had female scientists, but it was like a love interest kind of thing. This came out and it was just savaged. And then the one that came out about 10, 12 years ago was was a prequel to this. So that film supposedly ends the with the helicopter scene from the beginning of this film.
I
And there
see.
was a couple of women in that, I think. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who I like in a lot of stuff that I've seen it in. But, I've avoided watching the film because I don't see the point in seeing it. But maybe I should make some time to just check it out, give it a fair shake, see if it's at least a decent film. I just don't know that you could top Carpenter. And if you're going to remake
Yeah, and
something of like
yeah.
this,
Do you want to really
that
do
should be
that?
the goal. And it's just, I think it's impossible. Or you're going to go in a completely different way, the way Cameron and Fincher did. Those are palatable ideas that don't achieve the greatness of the original, but you know, still good films, quality films, enjoyable experiences. I don't know if the same could be
The
said of this.
Well, it's kind of like the description of what you said that in whatever review people were saying that it was just this film is just men yelling at each
Hmm.
other. It's like, well, okay, well, you could say that about every film with
Yeah,
men. Um, if it's Alien, well, now it's fucking men and women yelling at each other,
sure, sure.
and every other fucking drama. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, is men and women yelling at each other. I mean,
It's the way you do it. It's the
and what's the difference? Yeah,
nuances. Yeah, and I think there are nuances in both Alien and The Thing that they they parallel each other. They complement each other very well. That are not seen in other films of this. And I don't know how much of that is on the writers or the directors, because ultimately the big the big boogeyman in all this story, and the big problem in making movies, is the studio wanting to push this
Yeah, that's
idea.
the thing.
Yeah,
That's the real thing that
that's
wants to
yeah.
transform fucking something that is supposed to be an individual into something that is not.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, because
this.
otherwise, I mean,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
No, no, go. You
No,
were
I
gonna
mean,
say.
like the, I mean, The Godfather is about men talking behind closed doors. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like you can reduce shit to whatever. Um, but along the lines of what you're saying with the studios, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's the real that's the metaphor is the especially like with where we're at now,
Sure.
in that we've gotten away from um even the fucking, and we've talked about this, the fucking like the the horror show, the creature that was Weinstein, the byproduct of his horrors and his fucking
Yeah.
I don't know if his horrors were the byproduct of his fucking film shit or if his film shit was a byproduct of his horrors. But the fact is that um, Beautiful Things came out because he was involved in that business,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and all the fucking bullshit and all of the sexual atrocities basically that he did, um, they fucking kill. They don't kill, but they do scar that fucking legacy
Yeah, they
of
do.
the period that he helped create.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But those
and
films
that's fucked up.
exist. Yeah, but those
But those
films
films
exist,
exist.
and they're great.
Yes.
And you're not going to tell me that I can't watch them. I mean,
No.
I have personal opinions on Roman Polanski. I think he's a scumbag of a human being. I think he evaded prison. I think he should go to prison now. It doesn't mean that we're not going to talk about Chinatown in a couple of months. And
Right.
it doesn't mean that we're
Exactly.
not going to rave about it in a lot of, and it would be short-sighted and simplistic of us to not cite his influence on the making of that film. He made the film.
Exactly.
So,
Right. And with our situation now, where you do have this fucking system that we're currently in,
mhm,
where the thing does take something else and reproduces a twisted, like incomplete version of it.
yeah.
Um, in the remakes and the reboots and the fucking rehashings that they do. And I understand the irony of talking about how great this remake is while shitting on current remakes. But I mean that's
It's an exception to the rule. It's
it's
just
it's in the wash. Like
yeah,
this shit is this.
yeah.
The the state of affairs now is, and the Marvel Universe bubble is gonna burst.
Some would say it's already bursting. Some would say that it's finishing up. They'll still pump money into it. They'll still keep going at it. But you know, there's talks about rebooting this. There's talks about remaking it. We still have another Alien film coming out in summer, and then they're talking about rebooting the entire series. I mean, it's the beast continues to feed on itself, and it doesn't. You might get something great out of it, but the likelihood is it's going to just be lesser and lesser. But there
This
is,
is when
yeah.
this is. I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. I'm listening.
This is when we become fucking Wilford Brimley ourselves. When we're
Yeah.
fucking like old men fucking screaming at each other, screaming at the listener, saying like, "Fuck." Um,
It wants to be
where
us.
yeah, exactly. It wants to be cinema, but it's not. That's when you get Scorsese
Yeah.
screaming. Th this is when you get nostalgia because you see what to you looks like And it's not like, oh, what these kids are doing. No, it's what this fucking industry is doing.
Yeah.
And there is a part of me that at this point wants to go back fucking 30 years and I want my MTV. I want fucking my video store. I want my fucking uh AM radio the way I had it before. I want fucking these things that were I want my Greek horror. I want fucking whether it's Alien or The Thing or these other films that we come back to, these films that we talk about, these films that even when we do fucking like our version of a reboot of a conversation, it's an attempt to revisit a film while still talking about other aspects that maybe we didn't touch upon the previous time.
Yeah.
We're not just trying to do it word for word, but with even worse audio, which is also an aesthetic fucking choice for us, budgetary and aesthetic, because we're gritty like that. But
we're not going video. We're not going to be clean. You're not going to have clips. It's not going to be beautiful. This is what we do. And people seem to like
we're
it.
a voice in the fucking dark.
That's right.
I mean, if you like it, that's cool. Yeah. Underground. We're fucking underground.
Is there anybody out there listening that we want to pay tribute to this week?
Slim this week. Thanks for the caffeine. Wired, jittery, needing to use the restroom, all of that disgusting thing type stuff. buymeacoffee.com/WatchRickRamos. These two films inform one another. They in this weird way they make me nostalgic, but they also they give me some kind of hope that there's something out there in the dark that we don't know about, that's creeping, that's gonna emerge. We're just waiting for it.
All of the stories haven't been told. We're just waiting to hear them. So that makes me feel good. That makes me feel like I'm with you. There's hope. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back next week. All right. Bye-bye now.